All right, all right, all right. It's showtime. We have a guest today, Dr. Reneé Carr. How are you, Dr. Renee?
I'm good. How are you doing?
It's all right. Hot as blazes outside.
Yes.
What have you been up to, Dr. Carr?
Nothing. Just trying to save the world and stay cool at the same time.
So we don't have, so that picture is not even, we can't even see it. So I need to put your name up so people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's for inside the studio.
Oh, okay.
So let me cut the music down. What do you do, Dr. Carr?
Well, I am a psychologist, and what I do is I apply psychology to help solve social issues. And so, whether it's the messaging behind something or insights and strategy to address a social issue, whether it's racism, like we're talking about today's Juneteenth. So, whether it's about truly understanding how past issues of slavery and racism still affect us mentally and legislatively today, or whether it's about how mental health is affecting the motivation behind mass shootings related to social issues in psychology.
So tell me about Juneteenth. One of the things we have talked about many times on this show is the effects of institutional racism, not just on African Americans. We're talking about here in the United States because we know racism exists everywhere, even in countries like India. But the effects of institutional racism on white people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the whole premise for what we colloquially call Karens. I think that's one of the main reasons for why that exists. So if you think about uh, passed down trauma, knowing that your husband, as a enslaver, was raping children, having sex with individuals outside of your marriage, and then that creating your jealousy, your only power was saying that you're the head of the house. And so I think one reason to have that type of generational trauma and emotional instability is then trying to assert that power as the only power that you have just by being a white female.
So help me out. This is going to be interesting. Help me out with this effort to ban abortion. It baffles me that if white America wants to repopulate, you can't make women have babies. And it's almost like this abortion ban. And I'm looking at it from why would this is a dominant country dominated by white people, why would they ban abortion? And to me, the only thing that makes sense is because they want white women to produce more babies. But black people outproduce them, and then
Yes.
Latinos outproduce us all.
Yeah. Minorities don't have, although there are separate maternal complications that go for each race, inability to conceive is often more predominant in the Caucasian or white individuals. And so I think if you look at it from different perspectives, a medical standpoint, a religious standpoint, and also a racial standpoint. So I would have different conversations based off of which point you were alluding to or referring to.
It's almost, I guess what I'm getting to is that Donald Trump has rallied the troops. Would you agree?
Yes.
And he's rallied them on a common cause, no different than the Civil War. Yes, no.
Well, what do you mean by that?
The Civil War was about slavery. There were
Right.
those who were opposed and those who were for it. The Southern planters were for it. The people in the North were more industrialists.
Well, I think that the whole thing about Donald Trump even being elected the first time was on the heels of having a black president and the underlying racial and racist sentiment that was boiling in our country as a result of that. So individuals who were unhappy with that, then Donald Trump spoke to that base, and in a way that made it where not only can we take America and make it great again after we had this black president, because it was quote unquote, I guess, ruined by having a black president. But now we could take it back, make it great again, and we can do as many overt and obvious type of racist acts as possible. And I will then label you as good people, or I will pardon you legally. And so that was what he ran on, because that sentiment was already there in the country. And then that being, him being a person who loves attention from narcissist-based tendencies, then he knew that that's what gets the attention. And so then he leveraged that to just continue and not only amp up his antics, but also the rhetoric that comes along with what you're saying as far as the Civil War. Being able to then, yes, put everyone black in their place, take away any type of rights they have, and take away any jobs that we are, quote unquote, having stolen from us by not letting anyone who is an immigrant come into our country, but still denying the realities of white people are the primary immigrants in our country, starting from the beginning of our, United States of America.
Interesting. So we're talking with Dr. Reneé Carr, political and corporate advisor, psychologist, solutions for social issues. Dr. Reneé Carr applies psychology and political science to help political and corporate leaders solve the most pressing social problems and crises. Dr. Carr also provides expert, unbiased, and intelligent commentary for breaking news, current events, and key issues. One of the key issues here in the state of Maryland. Good afternoon, Michael Randolph from Tampa. One of the issues here in Maryland is mass incarceration. I have read that African American men make up 38.8% of America's prison industrial complex. While America only has 5% of the world's population, we have 25% of the world's inmates. What is the impact of all of this mass incarceration? And kudos, let me just say, to the governor for signing the executive order to expunge 175,000.
Yes, that was excellent and long overdue.
How do we reverse this mass incarceration? Is this a step in the right direction?
Well, I think in order to reverse it, you would have to, one, acknowledge the basis of why the incarcerations, the arrests, why the charges happened in the first place at such a level of discrimination. Meaning that in order to reverse it, you have to recognize that they only were arrested or pulled over or charged because they were black and because of the underlying biases that we have against black people and especially against black men. And so with the goal to not have to recognize anything about bias, as far as some of the Republicans are trying to push against ignoring that, then that would be a hard task to do. Because if they're wanting to ignore that bias even happens, that people are indeed treated as if they are racial minorities, you would have to first acknowledge that. And then you can go from there to then actually say, okay, look, this was a wrong that was done. And it wasn't done in slavery times. It's still being done in 2024. And so once we recognize that, first knowledge is the key, and then move from there to then say, okay, well, then what can we do to truly make it where it's equality and equity, and where we are recognizing that we do have a lens of stereotypes, prejudice, and racism in our country today.
So did you see the comment by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene? She commented on the fake eyelashes. She was trying to paint a picture of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Yes, my soror.
Your soror.
Yes.
She clapped back on her and called her a bleached blonde, bad-built butch body.
Yes.
Do we have to fight racism at every turn? Do we have to address it? I remember, Renee, I was waiting tables once, And it happened so fast. I mean, a few things happened on a racial tip when I was in the hospitality industry. But this one particular time, the owner called me boy. He said, go over there and ask the governor what he want, boy. And it happened so fast. Now, I later compensated. I later definitely compensated.
Okay.
Got compensated, I should say.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But it happened so fast. And it's not the kind of thing that anybody, any situation can really prepare you for. But the same with this comment. This woman is on the floor of Congress.
Right.
And this is her mentality.
Exactly.
Like it's okay, like it's acceptable. And Jasmine Crockett, she couldn't believe that no one silenced her.
Right.
Is that where we are? I mean, how would you deal with that? You're the problem solver.
Right, right. Well, the problem is the fact that she was even Marjorie Taylor Greene was even elected to office in the first place. The reason why she was elected and one of the highest fundraisers for the Republican Party is because she has the mentality without the class of being able to overtly be racist and then to try to act like she's not. So the one way that I would address it is I think that you have to, if it's being acknowledged publicly that you are a racist person making racist or microaggression, then we do have to respond to it publicly and not allow it to go under the table. Because what happens so often is that, okay, well, Black and brown people may say, okay, well, let's not make any waves. Let's still be respectful. Let's handle this offline. But all of that passivity and sweeping it under the rug or being quiet about it is what allows the larger picture to still happen. And so I think that if it's done overtly, then it must also be addressed overtly.
Yeah, I believe in deal with it on the spot.
Exactly.
I remember taking my daughter down to the harbor, Baltimore Inner Harbor. Classic case of raising your children on what to do and what not to do. We're walking through the harbor. Everybody's walking through the harbor. And we came across this white family, and it was about 5 or 6 of them. And they were spread across. So we were going that way, and they were coming this way. And I told my daughter, do not move. We're walking straight through. Because there was a presumption, I imagine, by some, that Donnie and his daughter are going to move out the way.
Right.
And it was not happening. Not that day, not tomorrow, not next year.
And then what happened?
Nothing.
Did they move?
We went straight through the middle of it.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
I've run into similar situations with people from India. And I'm not at all saying all white people or all Indian people, anything like that. We know that jerks come in all flavors. There's some Black people that would push in the harbor myself. This is a nonviolent show, of course. But when you think of how entitled and privileged, even, we got children who are entitled. What do you do for entitled people, Dr. Carr? How do you deal with people who feel like they have a right to the road and you should move out of their way so that they can get to where they're going? Like you're not, like you're 3/5 of a human being or something.
Right. Well, I deal with entitled people all the time because most people in power are, alpha male, self-entitled, and different races. So one of the things is, from a psychological standpoint, if a person was experiencing a delusion, you don't join in the delusion. So you have to just replace the delusion, which is I'm entitled, with facts about reality. And so that's how I would approach it.
Okay. So here's another dilemma. Here in the state of Maryland, Baltimore City, Prince George's County are 23 and 24 at the bottom of the heap when it comes to public education. 60, there was a time, and I don't know if it's still today, but it was mentioned on a show earlier this week, where 60 is passing. Where are the children in Baltimore City? Where are we going with public education? We have classrooms with icicles, classrooms without air. Congratulations to Baltimore City College. Those students will be going to the University of Baltimore moving forward until the school is renovated. Martin O'Malley, when he was governor, was proud of his 21st Century Schools project. But the thing is, we don't typically see these new schools in the Black community. Any thoughts on public education? I think we failed our children. We have a Maryland State Lottery that has garnered over 16, 17 billion dollars. And they promised back in 1973 that education would be a priority.
Right.
We have a renovated football stadium, a renovated baseball stadium, but we have classrooms that aren't fit to be sat in, like now.
Well, a lot of the time, the messaging that's used to emotionally manipulate voters or citizens would tie into things about children and focusing on children. And then behind the scenes, or then after legislation is passed, then making budgetary amendments that would then take money where it was supposed to have been allotted to then fund something different. And what you do see is that, well, it is going to children, but it may go to children that were already overserved and over compensated. And the ones that are underserved remain underserved because those are also more likely to be impoverished communities, individuals who may not vote, individuals who pay low taxes, and therefore they would have low political influence. And so they send the money to where it's going to benefit them most to be elected or re-elected, and to have their individuals benefiting and to keep going. And so I think one way that the children have been failed in a Baltimore City, you can tell by zip code. One zip code can differentiate how long a Black boy will live compared to if he were living in another zip code. And to be able to so accurately identify the morality of Black youth just based off of zip code, and that does show the systemic racism that does exist, where funding in healthcare or education and also higher rates of policing are correlated with why they have a less likely chance to live or to live longer. And so in order for us to do anything, we have to, one, recognize that if you're Black or brown or minority, don't be okay with, okay, as long as you're okay. Don't be okay with just sitting by the sidelines. Actually do something to use your voice, to not just get caught up into people are coming to visit you because it's November and it's election season. Don't get, swept away with feeling as if you're special, but actually do something to vote and to not sit down and to take action and to be aggressive in having your voice heard, and to be aggressive with where you have your vote and voicing where you're going to have your vote. Because when it comes down to it, even if you don't have any money, you still have a vote. And so they need to be more aggressive in supporting those individuals who do support people that look like you or that have needs like you, and then continue that support with just your vote or your voice.
Dr. Carr, I don't mean to surprise you, but I don't think people believe in the political process. I think there's a lot of apathy, particularly in Baltimore, a city with 500,000 people. We have 70,000 people vote.
Yeah, no, that is true. That's why I'm emphasizing that you need to still do it. A lot of people don't believe in the political process because it has failed them. But if you look at so much manipulate, even just look at our current political environment with conspiracy theories of votes being stolen or of elections being stolen. If it weren't the case that elections, even the possibility could be stolen or that votes could be manufactured, there wouldn't be that argument if votes did not somehow count. And so try not to get caught up into the other side of the conspiracy that voting doesn't matter. Still do something. It's like, it's summertime, I'm on vacation. So it's like, okay, I may not be able to eat desserts and cake every day because that will then have a cumulative effect. Likewise, if you were going to eat every day, you will see an impact. So if you're only voting once and then that's it, but you don't do anything else to be involved in the political process, then it won't have any cumulative effect. But if you do stay involved and you do vote for more than just a president or more than just a Black person, then vote consistently and every time, and then you can see a bigger and a more cumulative effect.
Are you concerned about a Donald Trump presidency?
No.
Why?
I'm not concerned because I don't think that he will win.
Well, if he does win, the Heritage Foundation has put out this document called Project 2025, and it outlines 4 pillars: restore the family as a centerpiece of American life. Interesting, given that Black families are 70% led by a single parent. Number 2, dismantle the administrative state. He wants to get rid of all federal agencies. Number 3, defend the nation's sovereignty and borders. And number 4, secure God-given individual rights to live freely. Now, these are all code words and buzz terms, but some of the things that they will be, it addresses, and again, these are just code words: it's immigration, climate, economy, abortion, tech, education. The Heritage Foundation has put $22 million into this document, and they want Donald Trump to take it up once he gets into power. Hello, sir. And that's a lot. Under the proposals, this is tech and education. Under the proposals, pornography would be banned, and tech and telecom companies that facilitate access to such content would be shut down. The document calls for school choice and parental control over schools and takes aim at what it calls woke propaganda. Buzzword: Black people stay alert. It proposes to eliminate a long list of terms from all laws and federal regulations, including sexual orientation, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hello, gender equality, abortion, and reproductive rights. I mean, my God, do you see it coming?
Yes.
It's fascism.
Yes. It is very much built off of a racist and oppressive agenda.
What do we do? How do I wrap my brain around this and not be worried?
Well, I think one, of course, is voting. You can worry all you want, but worry won't solve any problems. So you need to, vote and spread, just like you do on your shows. Make sure you spread the information, the truth about what's happening, and let people then be able to make an informed decision of all the facts and not just what sounds good or what sounds comfortable. So I think it's still, if this will be impacted, if he were to be elected, then do your part to make sure he does not get elected.
Renee, I'm not putting all of that on my shoulders.
Right.
This is a whole country, and we have a whole generation of young people who are very politically apathetic. 70,000 people in Baltimore voted in a city with 500,000. I think to South Africa's first free election, the lines were wrapped, you've seen the paintings, lines wrapped all around. People in other countries vote a heck of a lot more than us. A lot of us don't believe in the political process. When we look at East and West Baltimore, we know that these areas have been neglected, while the White L, which goes from Johns Hopkins University down to the harbor over to East Harbor, that's where the investment has gone historically. So when I'm asked, what do you think of the Black kids that went down to Fells Point? Give them something in their own daggone neighborhoods. There's been a historic underinvestment in the Black community.
Yes.
Even with a plethora of Black elected officials.
Well, unfortunately, I find that in Baltimore, especially, there you have like a big fish in a little pond mentality. And I find that a lot of elected officials who are Black, they feel as if, okay, I've arrived and therefore I'm okay. And I'm going to focus on what's going to allow me to continue in this lifestyle of being a big fish. And my goal is focusing more on self rather than the citizens I was elected to help bring up or to help solve their needs and their issues. So that's one reason. But I think also if you do have a mentality of the political process doesn't work, then think about all these millions of dollars that go into political fundraising to just get messages out to you. Think of all the propaganda to tell people the wrong dates to vote for voter suppression. There wouldn't be all this tactic involved if voting doesn't indeed have some level of effectiveness.
What has been an issue you've had to provide some advice on that you can share with us to a politician or elected official?
What do you mean as far as voting or what?
Oh, no, no, no.
Some of the
Advise
issues that I
them on
work on. Well, mass shootings, the legislation that goes behind gun laws, also,
let's talk about that. Can we look at Brooklyn Park?
okay,
I mean, that was a mass debacle.
right,
Nothing really worked that day. It wasn't like the police didn't know. It wasn't like the community didn't know. And then I just saw in the news, I think last week, one young man got 60 years.
mm,
And it was the largest mass shooting in Baltimore. I think of that. I think of Freddie Gray.
mm-hmm,
I'm just trying to wrap my brain around what this show is all about, which is mental health. What happens, if this happens in a white neighborhood, they send out Winnebagos filled with people like you, therapists, doctors,
right,
psychologists.
right.
When does the Black community get mass therapy? Is it church?
Well, I think that because there is more of a general discard for the Black community healing, then I think that you will continue to see less help, less support being given to Black and Brown or impoverished or low income communities. And that's again, it's you have to understand that it's not that obviously we know that minority racial groups are different, but if one group has the power and then the other group then becomes passive, then that could be, as we started with the conversation at the beginning of the show, more of generational trauma. It's easier to be passive or to just go along or to do nothing or to believe that I have no power than to actually do something. So if a mass shooting were to happen today, then of course you would see a disparity on who gets care and who does not get care. But that only happens because of the individuals who are in power. And yes, money does dictate who is in power oftentimes, but then you had to still do something more than just sitting by the sidelines. And, life can be very hard. You may not have time to focus on an election 2 years or 4 years down the line. You're focusing on just having your family being able to eat today. But we do have to still be mindful that you do have power and you can do something.
I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but I got to say, poor people are trying
Right,
to eat.
right,
They're trying to play their numbers. They might be trying to get a drink or a pack of cigarettes.
right, right.
Or others might be trying to get high.
Mm-hmm.
They are not thinking about voting. I will
Right.
say, when Obama was elected, there were lines in Sandtown at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
How do we replicate that interest? I mean, you've studied Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Voting is at the bottom of the list for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the hierarchy, yes, it would be more of the self-actualization at the top. So it would be smaller, whereas at the bottom is survival needs, consistency in food, shelter, and safety. If you think about it from food, safety, and shelter are hinged upon who is in office, then that could help change the mindset of I'm going to vote even if a Black person is not running for office. Who is more aligned? Because not all Black people are truly for Black people once they get into office.
Say it
And
again.
so not all Black people who run for office are truly for Black people. So then what you can say is that okay, even if a Black person is not running, which candidate actually cares more about by their history, not their campaign messaging, by their history of actually being involved in serving the issues that I care about or the individuals and the communities that I care about.
So I'm glad you're here because now I'm getting ready to drop it on you. Baltimore is 9-1 Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
9-1. No Republican wins in Baltimore City. If you
Mm-hmm.
say anything Republican, you're immediately ostracized or demonized.
Mm-hmm.
But Democrats are responsible for this black butterfly, white L.
Right,
But they
right.
will tell us Republicans are the devil.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, that goes back to, so if you look at every career, every industry, even the different branches of the military, it attracts different personality types. Likewise, you have different personality types for states and for cities and for communities. And for Baltimore City, for Black people, there is a consistent personality type of, as long as I am the big fish, then that is all I care about. And so, yes, I'm a Democrat, and yes, I'm in office, and I have this pseudo fame that makes me feel good, that sets my family up. But that's all I care about is self preservation.
What
And
do you
so,
mean? You're talking about the family legacy, like
of
having,
whoever's in office,
yeah, you mean like having a name in the history books,
yes,
having the fancy events and going
yes,
to the Preakness with straw hats and
yes.
black seersucker suits and sundresses.
Yes,
That's you.
that's all they're caring about is looking, Instagram worthy, and caring only about their children or their legacies or their pockets. And so that makes them more likely to be attracted to the dollars that will support their lifestyle and their self-centered views and goals and preservation, rather than truly being in office to care for other individuals. And I see that of the many different states that I, help to address issues for, predominantly in Baltimore City. And I think that that could be also a generational pass down of how slavery came about or how it was addressed. With people being more comfortable in Baltimore and just staying here rather than going more up north. And so I think that the voters get lazy, like, oh, okay, well, it's Black people, then we should be good. But if you recognize that all Black people don't really care about you, they may care about themselves, especially in Baltimore City, then don't rest on, okay, well, then we have people who are Black in office, then all of our needs will be fixed. That's not true. You may actually have a Republican candidate who may truly care more about your community or your zip code more than a Black Democrat who you actually went to college or high school with.
What sorority are you again?
Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
So does that mean that you automatically vote for Angela Also Brooks for U.S. Senate?
I vote for people who I think could make a change and who could, on a group scale, be more impactful. So I would be if I had to choose between my sorority sister running, and if I knew how she came in versus someone else who was not in my sorority, I would pick the person who was more likely to have a history and a track record of doing more for the issues that I care about. I would not necessarily vote for a Black person. I would not necessarily vote for one political party more than another. I would vote for the person who I would think, once in office. So I look at it from a different perspective. Once in office, is this person more likely to be bought and to be caught up in the fame than they are to actually do the work? And there are many candidates. We just had our, primaries in Maryland. There are many candidates who were on the ballot who I could tell had new fame, and they were just focusing on riding on those coattails. And I could see that they were more likely to be able in the future to be bought and to be persuaded to vote according to someone else's viewpoints because they wanted to just stay in their good graces. They wanted to pay them back for this favor or have loyalty to their primary donors and people who set them up to be in those positions to even run in the first place.
Wow, you said a lot there.
Yes.
There's a huge Senate race, and of course, Angela also Brooks is going against Larry Hogan. I've been in Larry Hogan's presence at Lexington Market, the new Lexington Market, and I'm gonna tell you, a lot of black people like him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I like both of them. I like both of them.
I'm with you that I cannot vote for you just on your skin color alone,
Mhm.
especially if you have if your track record is spotty, shaky, or empty.
Correct. Correct.
And let's be honest, Kamala Harris,
Mhm.
Angela Also Brooks, even Aisha Braveboy, their job was prosecute people, lock people up.
Mhm. Mhm.
When you consider that black men, black women star in the prison movie, it's hard to, even Ivan Bates, he's state's attorney, if he ever wants to be mayor, we all know that his job was to lock up black people. Well, his job is to prosecute crime. And
Mhm.
the end result in a majority black city, 63% black, 73% black and brown,
Mhm.
is the end result is mass incarceration in the black community, 70% single mother households, 70% recidivism rate, and the utter destruction of the black family, given that there was a time in the 40s and 50s where blacks were more married than any other community in America.
Mhm.
So this upcoming election will be interesting. I wanted to deal with you, wanted to ask you this question. Can you help me to deal with some of the, this was said, we did an event yesterday in Harlem, and one of the honorees, Mary Pate, actually wasn't Mary Pate. What's the lady's name? Her name escapes me, but I remember what she said. No, it was Mary Pate. She talked about generational strengths versus generational trauma.
Mhm.
We all know about the generational trauma. We hear it, we see it on Facebook all the time. Break the curse, break the cycle, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's cigarettes, gambling, whoremongering, porn, what have you. Incest, rape. We never talk about the generational strengths. Can you
Mhm.
tell me about generational strengths? The strengths that we
Yes.
get from our ancestors?
Yes, definitely. And that was kind of what I would like, individuals who are Black to remember that you may have been, lower socioeconomically, but you eventually were able, to vote. And it wasn't always with, having money or even other privileges, but one of the strengths is being able to persevere despite a systemic strategy to oppress. And if you're able to overcome and even the worst circumstances, then it means that you do have that strength in your DNA that you can readily rely upon to do what's uncomfortable and to do what's difficult for the sake of your children's children, just like our ancestors did and died for us. It wasn't just for them. Sometimes they knew they were going to die if they protested or sat in or, tried to kill the enslaver. But they were willing to do it for the greater good. And so I think that if you're willing to see beyond yourself and to recognize that you do have a history, a genealogy of people being able to be strong to make sacrifices for you, then it might encourage you. It might empower you to recognize that you're stronger than what you think, that you have more power than what you think.
You know, in my second book, I Am Black Wall Street, I talk about some of those strong people who resisted slavery. See, America often paints through Hollywood this narrative that black people were happily. I remember Kanye said that slavery was a choice. It's like, shawty, what's wrong with you? But
Right.
I think about the things that our ancestors or those of our ancestors who were enslaved, because not all blacks were slaves and not all whites were free. But I
Correct.
think about what they endured, you know, even men who were raped
Yes.
by slave owners. And there were those who fought back, whether it was Harriet Tubman, the greatest leader ever of the Underground Railroad, who had the courage. She had the courage of a lion.
Yeah.
Or we think about Frederick Douglass. We know about in his narrative, he was sent down to the N-word breaker. I don't want to say that word on this show, not contaminated.
Right.
But when he was sent to the N-word breaker, he ended up breaking his back.
Mm.
When I think about in Jamaica, you had Nani the Maroon Queen, who fought against British expansion, British colonialism, and they built what was called a Maroon colony. Down in Brazil, which has the largest population of Black people outside of Africa, they had Zumbi, and Zumbi was ultimately beheaded. But all throughout South America, the Caribbeans, the Americas, even America, the United States, there were many of us who fought back, including your ancestors and mine. Because I don't think you came from no weak stock, Dr. Carr.
Right. Definitely.
I mean, even to pursue higher education.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
how do we tap into that?
What did you say?
How do we tap into our inner strength? I mean, the show is about mental health. How do we get strong?
So whether it's about mental health for social change or mental health just to help you get through the day, you have to recognize that you are a person of value and that you are here for a reason, and that you are not meant to live a life of trauma or despair. And that although bad things happen all the time to everyone, then you can decide, am I going to let this keep me enslaved? Or am I going to make it where I'm going to overcome this and not give into it? When you think about generational strengths, you can think about, okay, well, then there was someone who probably went through worse than what I did, and they may have survived it only because they were thinking about me as their future generations. So, what can I do to honor that? What can I do if I were to have little me, if I was 3 and 5 years old? What would I have said, even to myself, about the situation that I'm going through today? And how can I lift myself up and to continue and to not let any more of the negatives or of the trauma that has come against me, how can I not let that win? So I believe in trying to have a win mentality. And it doesn't matter if it's hard and difficult, or you may only do one thing, which is just getting out of bed and brushing your teeth today. That is a win. And focus on, well, can you make your win now? Am I going to brush my teeth for 5 days in a row or 2 days in a row? So start out small and then build up your strength. Just like with regular, I work out. When you're doing your weights, you cannot start off with doing 100 pounds all the time. Start off with the 5 pounds. So if you're thinking about your own life of being depressed, you may not be able to go out and run a marathon or go out and get a job today or overcome depression all in one moment. But can you just get up today and brush your teeth? In society, as Black people, we may not be able to overturn all offices of seats in office in one election, but can we vote for one person consistently that's been for us or issues we care about? And then can we add that to 2 people? Can we tell one person to vote? Can we tell 2 people to vote? So still start out small and build up your strength in those areas, build up your confidence in those areas, and then just continue to grow.
Did you know Donald Trump was a Gemini?
No, I don't follow astrology.
Yeah, he is. It's a pretty smart Gemini. This is Gemini season. I mentioned that. You got me thinking about so many things. What about my favorite questions? Relationships.
Yes, that is your favorite. What about relationships?
Selection process.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, you taught me about the selection process.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I told you about it. I don't know if you listened, but I did teach
oh,
it.
ho, 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 ho. You told me about the selection process. So look at social media today.
Mm-hmm.
People are just butt naked on social media. People can't wait to get out there in their bathing suit. And my thing is, why just take your clothes all the way off?
Right, right.
Where has what is so I guess here's the question. Have we lost our cotton picking minds?
That was a good adjective to use since we're talking about slavery. No, I think that it's more of a social issue of promiscuity and high sexuality and accepting anything. And so that then relates to a change in morals, what is considered appropriate behavior on or off social media. And because people have you mentioned hierarchy of needs, at the basis, there's a hierarchy of needing to be loved and belonging and to be accepted. And so, because sexuality has been promoted and confidence in doing whatever pleases you has been promoted, along with the actual likes on a social media post, then being translated psychologically into I'm being accepted into a community, then it's because those posts getting more attention that people can get an endorphin high of thinking that people like them because they made this post, when in actuality it's not a true sense of liking or acceptance, and you've sold your morals just to get a like on a picture. And so I wouldn't say that we've lost our mind, because it is consistent psychological behavior to go after acceptance and approval. And it just so happens that there's a co-variable of social promotion of sexuality and showing everything as being accepted now, that's tied into the new ways of getting your psychological acceptance and belonging needs met if you come from an insecure place.
So suppose you do come from an insecure place. How do you get more secure?
Well, one, recognize that social media is not the place. The one reason why social media can be so addictive psychologically is because it has little tiny bursts of emotions that go from one emotion to another without any complete closure. So you still keep scrolling or you still keep clicking because you're still looking for a psychological closure from the first emotion that happened when you got on to your phone in the first place. So you can first become secure by recognizing what is a list of all the things that are good about me, even if it's I make the best grilled cheese sandwich possible. And going from your strengths, from your internal judgment, not getting your strengths and validation externally. So self confident is because you have become confident in yourself by yourself, not because someone else told you that you were worthy or unworthy.
So how do I know I'm worthy?
Well, I can definitely tell you that everyone is worthy. And the reason why you may have trouble believing that is because of what may have happened in childhood, disappointments in life as an adult. But you have to then say, okay, well, if I'm still here, if I believe in religion, then I might still be here for a reason. So then what are those things about me that I would have to force myself to say is a good thing about me? You have to force yourself to believe something because you already accepted one belief or multiple beliefs about you that were not true. So, because those beliefs against you have become more ingrained, you have to then force yourself to believe truths that are for you and then make those become ingrained into your psyche and self belief.
Through what? Affirmations, positive affirmations every morning, meditation.
No, no, I would just start out small and just say, for example, you may think that you are physically unattractive, but you may have one little tiny patch of skin that's flawless. Oh, this part of my skin is nice. This part of my skin is smooth. That's beautiful. That's handsome about me today. Or you may have intellectual impairment and you may not be able to do higher levels of affirmation, but you can still say, I'm a good person. So you can start out small with whatever it is. Affirmations people often do wrong or incorrectly. They often say something that they don't believe, and they often use through psychoneurolinguistics, they use words that sound good but mentally go against them, and they actually introduce negatives. For example, if you say as an affirmation, I am not going to let anyone hateful in my atmosphere today. You already said not, so your brain heard a limitation, and you also said anyone negative. So that's another negative that you're introducing, and you're hearing psychoneurolinguistically. So because your brain heard two negatives and not any positives, that's going to be an unhealthy affirmation, because it
What's
won't
the
be
different
affirmed.
way of saying it?
Yes. So then what you would say is, I will only accept positive words into my mind today.
I will only accept positive words in my mind today.
Yes, yes. So you don't say what you're not going to do, what you won't accept, what you don't want. You speak what you do want. You speak what you do have that is true, or what you want to have. So that's what you speak. I will speak peace to others today. I will receive peace today. I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to go off on anybody today. But those are not affirmations. Those are just speaking words, a mantra that still has negative words in it, that your brain will then, well, your mind will then see as negative, and then that will then make you feel less happy or less peaceful than actually more peaceful.
Okay, I'm all about business. drreneecarr.com. What will people find when they go to your website? Who should call you? Who can you help? Are you expensive? And Michael Randolph is just a big fan of yours. Great and powerful show. He said he's about 4 minutes ago, he noted the so-called me generation explained in part. And he
Yes.
also said there's a difference between poor people and poor thinkers.
Yes.
So
The
let's
poverty mindset. Yes.
are you expensive?
I don't think so, but but the people who are my clients are high profile people, so the range of what I my rates and my retainers are consistent with what they're already used to paying.
You said something earlier today, and it had to early in the show, not long ago. You talked about the give back.
Mhm.
Those of us who get a degree, those of us who are fortunate to pledge Delta and hang out with some of the sharpest black women in the world, those of us who are able to get a PhD or buy a home with a picket fence and a lawn in Owings Mills. Why is it when we get to these places, we don't go back to the old places anymore? So consequently, grandma's house gets trashed. The
Right.
city ends up taking it because it's vacant and been dilapidated for
Dilapidated.
several
Mhm.
several years. Dr. Michael Zolikoff says it like this. He says, we don't like poor black people.
Right. Because when you think of cognitive dissonance, and when you think of self acceptance, if your view, as you mentioned about self confidence, if your view of self comes from a hate of yourself, and then when you finally achieve whatever you have created as this view of success, then you're going to then hate that part of yourself that you attach to failure. So if I was what you may see in a lot of, and I'm not speaking along party lines, but you will see in a lot of people who do are diehard Republicans, it's often because they have an internal hate of themselves as a black person, and so they want to associate themselves, even if it doesn't make any sense, with a political party, just the name in and of itself, to say that I am different and I am special, and therefore, regardless of my skin color, I am going to be accepted. Even when you pledge a sorority or fraternity, some people, if they go into a pledging thinking, well, if I pledge this or if I pledge that, I will be seen as attractive just by my association. That comes from an opposite attachment of, I don't think I'm beautiful or handsome, but if I pledge this or if I become this political party, then that will overcompensate for my inadequacies.
I've
So when
seen
you,
it.
yeah, it happens all the time. So when you go back to people who are, who do have a definition of success that they have attained, if that definition came from a faulty premise of who I am is not enough, and therefore success means becoming something completely opposite of myself, then that internalized self-hate will cause you to then reject any remembrance or any semblance of anything that you were trying to get away from, which may be your grandma's house or your old neighborhood.
Little overcompensation, huh?
A lot of overcompensation, but it's
Like a
rooted
little guy in a big monster truck.
Yeah, like as far as penis size. Yeah, that often happens. People,
Okay,
even if you look at someone's ties, I see you have a tie on today, so I won't go into the tie analogy of penis size. But a lot of things, when you look at psychology, it does tell you what people
what
wear.
size?
What?
What size?
Penis size. Is that what you were talking about? About the man in the monster truck?
No, I was just talking about a little guy with a big monster truck overcompensating, and you're associating it because maybe the size of his genitalia.
Right. So when you're
Wow.
right, and I was just talking about whether it's a physical part of yourself, oftentimes it may be a man's penis size or width, or whether it's your view of yourself if you are a person who grew up in a minority neighborhood and impoverished, then that self-hate may cause you to overcompensate, whether it's your clothing, your choice to join a sorority or fraternity, or your political affiliation. But then I thought you were talking about penis size. That's why I was talking about ties. So I guess that was a lot.
I'm scared to even ask the daggone. I don't even want to know the answer to that. I'm
Yeah, I'm not
fine.
gonna go.
I'm
I
good.
won't go into that today. But when
Jeez.
I'm focusing on someone being on camera, who a person is as a candidate or as a high profile person, what they wear and what they say and how they say it will communicate more than just the words. And so clothing is a part of that image.
Is this at all rooted in stoicism?
No, I just psychology and compensating for perceived lack or self-hate that may cause you to overcompensate in one area because you believe that you have an inadequacy in another area, or you're insecure about an area that you do have a weakness in.
We have to bring you back on the show. We want you on camera next time, Dr. Carr. We know you're on vacation, and we thank you for taking time, because I wouldn't, if I knew you were on vacation, I wouldn't, you don't mess with nobody, especially black people on vacation. But this is Juneteenth. So before you go, anything you want to say to the audience, to us as a people, as it relates to Juneteenth, the day that some people in Texas finally found out this thing was over?
Well, I do want to say that, as a person who does focus on words, then just remember that just because we're celebrating Juneteenth as a day of freedom, that the real reason of why it happened is because people had been misled or lied to for
Yeah.
2 years and oppressed. And so that's the real reason. So let's not buy into the other narrative. Oh, okay, well, this is when slavery ended. No, the real story is that there were 2 years of our ancestors being further oppressed. And those are the kind of things that I want to fight against: mismanaging the truth or misrepresenting the truth. And so some of the things I talk about here, I also talk about on my podcast, Politics and Psychology. So I would appreciate if you listen to that and then also spread the truth that I do say, that you can either have for your own knowledge, or you can just educate your family, and then you can understand more about what's happening with more of a truthful, unbiased lens that I would am able to say, because I'm not ruled by an agency or a political party that would try to control my messaging. I try to speak from science as well as love, and even if it's uncomfortable and controversial.
That you are. That you are. So people can go to drreneecarr.com to find out about the podcast.
Yes, there's a page that says podcast,
Okay. And it's Dr.
politics
Reneé
and
Carr.
psychology.
Over 53,000 downloads.
Yes. Well, that was as of March, and we need to do another one at the end of June. Try to do it quarterly, so we'll see what it
She
is now.
touches making the Bible illegal, your birth order, career choice, and life purpose. Life purpose. hologram husbands and sex with robots. Oh my God, bootstraps, where old money really comes from. You've been on a roll. I trained you well. You know, you started
Yes.
on our show. Well,
Yes, I
actually,
did.
no,
Well, I was there before, but then we met
yeah.
you, and that was a lot better.
Well, you have a strong list. J. Wendell Gordon, pedophilia is not funny. Gabrielle Union and poverty. You've been busy, lady. Jada Pinkett on here. Toxic feminism. A lot of stuff to watch on Juneteenth. Dr. Reneé Carr, we thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Donnie, and thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone who listened all the way through.
And my selection process has improved, but we'll talk about that offline.
We will definitely talk about that.
Okay.
All right. Love you. Talk to you later.
Love you too. You've been watching the New Life Recovery Show. My name's Donnie. Last name's Glover. If I think better, I do better. Have a beautiful afternoon. Stay out the heat, drink plenty of ice water, and walk slow. Good afternoon.